When did helping your grandparents become actual slavery? The respiratory therapist stopped mid-sentence while examining my chest x-rays. She pulled them closer to the light, then turned to me with an expression I'd never seen on a medical professional before, pure horror. These chemical burns in your lungs, she said slowly. They're not from pond water. Someone put agricultural pesticide in that pond before you went in. I tried to sit up, but the oxygen mask pulled me back. Every breath felt like swallowing broken glass. 3 days ago, I'd been cleaning my grandparents' pond on their 40-acre farm in rural Pennsylvania. Now I was in Jefferson Hospital's ICU, and Dr. Chen was telling me someone tried to kill me. That's impossible, I wheezed through the mask. My grandfather just told me to clean the pond properly this time. He wouldn't. Dr. Chen pulled up my medical records on her tablet. Jake, I need to ask you something. How many times have you been to the emergency room during your summer stays at your grandparents' farm? I didn't need to count. I knew. 7 times since I was 6 years old. The words came out before I could stop them. But those were all accidents. She turned the screen toward me. Let me read these to you. Age 6, fell from hayloft after refusing to stack 50-pound bales. Age 9, locked in grain silo for 3 hours. Age 11, chemical burns from spilled fertilizer. Age 13, heat stroke after 14-hour workday without water. Age 15, crushed fingers in malfunctioning farm equipment. Age 17, severe dehydration with kidney damage. Each incident flashed through my mind. Grandfather's face afterward, never apologetic, always angry that I'd caused trouble. And now, age 19, Dr. Chen continued, near drowning with organophosphate exposure. Jake, this isn't neglect. This is systematic. My phone buzzed on the bedside table. A text from my cousin Lily lit up the screen. Grandpa says you're faking. We have to do your pond work now. Emma won't stop crying. Emma, 8 years old. Mason, 11. Lily, 14. All 3 at the farm right now. The door burst open and my mother rushed in, already defensive before she'd even sat down. Don't start this again, Jake. They're good Christian people. They've sacrificed everything for this family. Mom, someone poisoned. Your grandfather called. He explained everything. You've been experimenting with drugs at college, haven't you? That's what's really wrong with your lungs. I stared at her. I'm on a ventilator because of pesticide exposure. They provide for you, Jake. That education trust fund? $180,000 they saved for you. That I can't touch until I'm 25 unless they approve it. My phone rang. Grandfather's name appeared on the screen. Mom grabbed it and put it on speaker before I could stop her. Boy. His voice filled the room. You better not be spreading lies to those doctors. You know what happens to ungrateful grandchildren who bite the hand that feeds them? The call ended. Mom looked at me like I was the problem. Dr. Chen cleared her throat. Mrs. Morrison, I'm a mandated reporter. What I've documented here requires investigation. Investigation of what? A grandfather who teaches his grandson hard work? Mom stood up. Jake's medical bills are already at $36,000. Who do you think is paying for that? She left without saying goodbye. Dr. Chen sat down beside my bed. Jake, I need you to think carefully. Are there any records of what happened at that farm? Anything that could prove what you've endured? The journals, hidden in the farmhouse attic. 5 notebooks from when I was 8 to 14, documenting everything, every 12-hour day, every punishment, every accident that followed my refusal to do something dangerous. I remembered the entry from July 3rd, 2009, worked from 6 in the morning until 8 at night, no lunch. Grandma said I was getting fat anyway. I calculated quickly. 15 summers, 12 weeks each summer, 70 hours per week. That was 12,600 hours of unpaid labor. At Pennsylvania minimum wage, they'd stolen $91,000 from me. But worse, I remembered something else. Last week, I'd seen grandfather's tax returns on his desk. He'd been claiming $15,000 per year in agricultural labor deductions for family farm workers. My phone buzzed again. A photo from Lily. 8-year-old Emma holding an industrial pesticide sprayer, tears streaming down her face. The caption read, Grandpa says she has to finish your work. I looked at Dr. Chen. I have proof they tried to kill me, but first, I have to get those journals from the farmhouse without them knowing I'm coming. I signed myself out of Jefferson Hospital against medical advice at 11 that night, ignoring Dr. Chen's warnings about my oxygen levels. The drive to my grandparents' farm took 2 hours. Every breath without the hospital oxygen felt like drowning in reverse. I pulled over twice to vomit, my lungs burning from the pesticide damage. By the time I reached the farm's gravel road, it was 3 in the morning. I parked my Honda half a mile away, behind the abandoned Miller barn where no one would see it. The walk to the farmhouse left me gasping. 20 steps. Stop. Breathe. 20 more steps. My chest rattled with each inhale. The house sat dark except for the porch light they always left on. Grandfather's truck was parked at its usual angle. I knew their routine. Both would be asleep until 5:30 when grandfather would start his morning inspection of the property. The spare key was still under the 3rd flower pot. My hands shook as I turned it in the lock. The door creaked and I froze, waiting. Nothing. Just grandmother's oxygen machine humming from their bedroom. I climbed the stairs to the attic, skipping the 4th step that always groaned. The attic door stuck like it always had. I pushed harder, and it popped open with a crack that echoed through the house. Still nothing from their bedroom. The attic smelled exactly the same. Mothballs and old hay. My flashlight found the loose floorboard in the corner where I'd hidden them. 5 spiral notebooks from when I was 8 to 14. Under them, the old Canon digital camera with hundreds of date-stamped photos. I was shoving the last journal into my backpack when grandmother's medical alert started screaming. Harold! Harold! I can't breathe! Her voice carried through the floor. My chest! Call 911. I heard grandfather's feet hit the floor. Martha? Martha, what's wrong? This was her favorite trick. Fake a medical emergency whenever she needed to manipulate someone. I'd seen her do it 17 times, but grandfather always played along. Check the house, she gasped between fake wheezes. I heard something upstairs. My blood froze. His footsteps moved toward the stairs. I grabbed the camera and crawled toward the attic window. It faced the barn, a 12-foot drop to the chicken coop roof below. I'd done it once when I was 13, running from a beating. Broke my wrist that time. Who's up there? Grandfather's voice boomed from the second-floor landing. I pushed open the window and threw my backpack down first. The journals made a soft thud on the chicken coop tin roof. His footsteps were on the attic stairs now. I squeezed through the window just as the attic door slammed open. I know you're in here, boy. I dropped. My damaged lungs seized on impact. Pain shot through my ankles, but I rolled forward, grabbed my backpack, and slid off the coop roof to the ground. Behind me, grandfather's truck engine roared to life. He must have run back downstairs. The headlights swung toward the barn as I sprinted into the cornfield. I crashed through the dried stalks, my chest on fire, each breath a knife. The truck couldn't follow me through the corn. I kept running until I reached my car at the Miller barn. I threw myself inside, started the engine, and drove without lights until I hit the main road. In my rearview mirror, I saw grandfather's truck searching the farm roads, his high beams sweeping back and forth like searchlights. But I had them. 5 journals. 7 years of evidence. Proof that this was never about tough love or building character. It was about having slaves they didn't have to pay. Back at my apartment, I spread the 5 journals across my kitchen table and started photographing every single page with my phone. My hands shook as I opened the first one. 8 years old, my handwriting barely legible, the entries hit like punches. July 3rd, 2009, worked from 6 in the morning to 8 at night. No lunch. Grandma said I was getting fat anyway. I remembered that day, 92 degrees. I'd passed out behind the barn. Grandfather threw water on my face and told me to stop being dramatic. August 15th, 2011. Grandpa made me spray the tomatoes without gloves. My hands are still burning. That was the summer I turned 11. The chemical burns lasted 3 weeks. Mom thought it was poison ivy when I got home. I never corrected her. July 22nd, 2013. Passed out in the field. Woke up to Grandpa yelling that I was lazy. 13 years old. That was the heat stroke incident. 14 hours in direct sun with no water breaks. The hospital said my kidneys almost failed. I cross-referenced each entry with my medical records from Dr. Chen. Every single emergency room visit followed the same pattern. I'd refuse a dangerous task. There'd be an accident. Then silence until the next summer. July 8th, 2009. Refused to climb into grain silo. Next day, fell from hayloft. August 20th, 2011. Said pesticides made me sick. 2 days later, chemical burns. July 23rd, 2013. Asked for water break. Worked until unconscious. My laptop was still open from yesterday. I logged into Facebook and searched for grandfather's profile. Public posts going back years. I screenshotted everything. Teaching city boy proper work ethic. Posted with a photo of 10-year-old me carrying fence posts twice my height. Kids these days need to learn what real work means. Video of me mucking out horse stalls at age 12, visibly gagging. Building character one chore at a time. Picture of me on a ladder cleaning gutters with no safety equipment, age 9. The comments from his church friends made me sick. You're doing the Lord's work, Harold. That boy is blessed to have you. This is what family values look like. I searched Pennsylvania tax records online. Public information. There it was. Harold Morrison, agricultural tax return. I clicked through the documents. Every year for the past 15 years, he'd claimed deductions for agricultural labor. $15,000 annually for family farm workers. That was $225,000 in tax deductions for labor I'd provided for free. But he'd also filed sworn statements that no minor labor was used on the property when applying for organic certification through the USDA. Federal forms. Federal fraud. The Canon camera had 437 photos, date stamps intact. Me at 8 years old operating a backhoe, me at 10 using a chainsaw, me at 12 handling pesticides with skull and crossbones warnings on the containers. In half the photos, you could see Emma, Mason, or Lily in the background, learning by watching, being groomed for their turn. I found a photo from last summer. Lily, then 13, her arms covered in the same chemical burns I'd had. Mason at 10, slumped against a fence post, heat exhaustion written across his face. Emma at 7, crying while grandmother forced her to hold a dead chicken by its feet. Then I found the video. August 2nd, 2022. Grandfather's voice clear as day. Boy needs to learn that on this farm you work or you don't eat. Simple as that. God helps those who help themselves. The camera had caught me in the background, collapsed in the dirt, 17 years old. The day before my kidney failure diagnosis, I pulled up the IRS website. There was a form for reporting tax fraud, another for agricultural subsidy fraud. The USDA had a hotline for organic certification violations. Pennsylvania had mandatory reporter requirements for suspected child abuse. My phone buzzed. A text from Mom. Your grandfather knows you took something from the house. He's contacted a lawyer. Return whatever you stole and apologize. This is your last chance to make things right. I looked at the journal spread across my table. 15 years of evidence. Proof of systematic torture disguised as traditional values. Another text, this time from Lily. Jake, Grandpa's really mad. He says you're trying to destroy the family. Emma won't stop crying. She thinks you abandoned us. I stared at that last line. I hadn't abandoned them. I was trying to save them. I called the family meeting for Sunday afternoon at Aunt Sarah's house, 30 minutes from the farm where Grandfather couldn't claim home advantage. Mom arrived first, already crying. Dad followed 10 minutes later, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. Uncle Ted came straight from church, still in his suit. Aunt Sarah had set up chairs in a circle like an intervention. Uncle Mike and Aunt Janet arrived last, whispering about missing the Eagles game for this. I spread the journals across Sarah's coffee table, then the printed photos, then the medical records, then the tax documents. 15 years, I said. 12,600 hours of unpaid labor, $91,000 in stolen wages, 7 emergency room visits, 1 near-death experience with pesticide poisoning. Mom picked up a journal page with shaking hands, read my 11-year-old handwriting about working until my hands bled. She dropped it like it burned her. I knew something was wrong, she whispered. Every summer you came back different, quieter. But they said I was overprotective. They said city life was making you soft. Uncle Ted, the family lawyer, picked up the tax documents. His face went pale. Harold claimed agricultural labor deductions while telling the USDA he didn't use minor workers. That's federal fraud, prison time fraud. Prison? Mom's voice cracked. They're 70 years old. They're criminals, I said. And Emma, Mason, and Lily are there right now. Aunt Sarah finally spoke. I stopped sending my kids in 2018. Katie came back with bruises shaped like fingers on her arms. Mom said she fell, but I knew. I didn't want to be the one who broke up the family. So you let my son take the abuse instead. Mom turned on her. We all did, Uncle Mike said quietly. We all knew something was off. We just thought better them than our kids. The room exploded, Mom screaming at Sarah, Dad telling everyone to calm down, Ted trying to explain legal ramifications, Janet crying about destroying the family. Then the front door opened. Grandfather walked in first, his work boots leaving mud on Sarah's white carpet. Grandmother followed, leaning heavily on her cane for sympathy. Behind them, Pastor Coleman in his Sunday robes. Family meeting without the family patriarch? Grandfather's voice filled the room. That's not very Christian of you. Everyone went silent. Mom stopped crying. Sarah stepped back. Even Uncle Ted seemed to shrink. Pastor Coleman smiled at everyone. I heard there was some confusion about Harold and Martha's child-rearing methods. I thought I'd come offer some spiritual guidance. Grandfather walked straight to the coffee table where my evidence lay spread out. He looked down at the journals, the photos, the medical records. Then he looked at me. His eyes were dead calm. Boy, he said, you just made the biggest mistake of your life. The moment those words left Grandfather's mouth, he picked up my journals and started flipping through them. Ungrateful drug addict trying to steal his inheritance. He held up a page to the family. Look at this handwriting, clearly written recently to frame us. Those are from when I was 8 years old, I said. Prove it. He turned to Pastor Coleman. Tell them what you told me about college kids these days. Pastor Coleman cleared his throat. I've counseled many young people who experiment with drugs at liberal colleges. They often create elaborate stories to explain their addiction, blame their families, anything to avoid accountability. Jake's medical issues are from smoking marijuana and worse, Grandfather continued. The hospital told me his lungs look like a drug user's. The hospital confirmed pesticide poisoning, I said. Hospitals say what you pay them to say. Grandmother suddenly clutched her chest. My heart. Oh Lord, my heart is breaking. Our own grandson, destroying us after everything we've sacrificed. She collapsed into a chair, sobbing so hard her whole body shook. It was Oscar-worthy. Mom reached for her. Martha, please. Don't touch me, Jennifer. You raised this monster. You let him go to that godless college where they teach children to hate their families. Uncle Ted picked up the tax documents. Harold, these are serious allegations. Federal fraud. Those are forged, Grandfather said calmly. I never filed those. The boy's good with computers. He made them up. I can verify them with the IRS, Ted said. You do that and you're out of my will. Grandfather's voice was ice. All of you. $2 million in land and assets. Gone. The room went silent. If you pursue this, Ted said quietly to me, they'll destroy your reputation. They have connections everywhere. The sheriff, the judges, half the county council. My phone buzzed. An email from my college. Dear Mr. Morrison, we've received concerning reports about potential drug use. Your campus employment has been suspended pending investigation. My hands started shaking. That job paid for my food and books. That's just the beginning, Grandfather said, watching my face. One call to your dean, one conversation with your landlord, one word to your professors. You'll have nothing. Mom's phone rang. She answered, listened, then hung up. Jake, what did you do? That was Aunt Carol. She says you're having a mental breakdown, that you attacked your grandparents last night. I wasn't even there last night, I said. Were you? Grandfather smiled. Can you prove that? Because I have witnesses who saw you break into our house at 3 a.m, stealing from us, acting erratic, clearly on drugs. Pastor Coleman nodded. I'll testify to your character, Harold. 40 years of faithful service to our community. While this boy, Grandmother wiped fake tears, has been in therapy for years. Mental problems. Ask his mother. Everyone looked at Mom. He had anxiety in high school, she whispered. Anxiety, depression. Now drug addiction and theft. Grandfather pulled out his phone. I've already called our lawyer. We're filing for an emergency psychiatric hold for his own safety. You can't do that, I said. Watch me. He turned to the family. Choose. Him or us. Your inheritance or this lying drug addict. One by one, they looked away from me. Even Mom. 48 hours, Grandfather said as he headed for the door. Return what you stole and apologize publicly, or I'll have you declared mentally incompetent. Your college will expel you, your mother will disown you, and those precious little cousins you claim to care about, they'll know you abandoned them for drugs. Within 48 hours, I'd lost my campus job, my mother stopped answering my calls, and Grandfather filed paperwork to have me declared mentally incompetent. But Dr. Chen didn't give up on me. She connected me with Marcus Williams, an adult protective services counselor who specialized in delayed agricultural abuse reporting. He'd seen this pattern before. Rural family exploitation hidden behind religious values, Marcus said during our first meeting. The community protects them because they're pillars. You need witnesses who aren't family. That's when Mrs. Henderson found me. She'd been my friend Tommy's mom, lived next door to the farm for 20 years. Jake, I've been waiting for you to speak up. She handed me a thick folder. I took pictures every summer from 2010 to 2015. Every time you showed up with bruises, burns, that broken wrist. The photos were date-stamped. Me at 10 with welts across my back. 12 with chemical burns on my arms. 14 with my fingers splinted after the equipment malfunction. I emailed my husband about my concerns, she continued. Every incident. He told me not to get involved, but I documented everything. She opened her laptop. Dozens of emails, time-stamped, describing what she'd witnessed. My screams from the barn, grandfather dragging me by my hair, grandmother denying me water on 100-degree days. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. Jake. This is Diego. I worked on your grandfather's farm 5 years ago. My hands started shaking. Diego had lasted 3 months before disappearing one day. I quit after what I saw them make you do, he said. Making a 14-year-old boy handle anhydrous ammonia without protection. I've been waiting for someone to stop them. Diego's words gave me the push I needed to do something insane. I called Grandfather the next morning. I want to apologize. Can I come for dinner tonight? There was a long pause. You're ready to admit you lied? I'm ready to make things right. 7 o'clock, don't be late. I bought a digital recorder that afternoon. Pennsylvania requires 2-party consent for recordings, but I told myself this was just for personal notes. Documentation, not evidence. The farm looked exactly the same. Grandfather met me at the door, his expression unreadable. Your cousins are upstairs doing homework. You're not to speak to them. Dinner was pot roast, grandmother's specialty. She smiled at me like nothing had happened. You've lost weight, Jake. Are you eating properly at school? The drugs make him thin, Grandfather said. Isn't that right, boy? I haven't been using drugs. Of course not. Grandmother patted my hand. We know you're a good boy who just got confused. College can be so overwhelming. I pushed record on the device in my pocket. About the pond, I said carefully. I understand now why you were trying to teach me responsibility. The grandmother's face lit up. Exactly. Children need to learn consequences. That's why I put just a little pesticide in the water. Nothing dangerous, just enough to make you uncomfortable. My chest tightened. How much? Oh, barely anything. A cup or two of the organophosphate. Your grandfather uses gallons on the tomatoes. She was building your character, Grandfather added. Like we're doing with your cousins now. How are they doing with the farm work? Lily's learning not to complain. Grandfather cut his meat aggressively. Missed 3 days of school this month for sick days. Except she wasn't sick. She was learning what real work means. What about Mason? Boy's developing some breathing issues. He shrugged. Same as you did. Builds immunity. These kids today are too protected. A little chemical exposure makes them stronger. And Emma, Grandmother laughed. That one's dramatic. Claims she's hungry all the time. Growing children don't need 3 meals a day. They need discipline. I forced myself to stay calm. Can I use the bathroom? You know where it is. I climbed the stairs, my heart pounding. The cousin's bedroom door was cracked open. I pushed it wider. Emma sat on the floor, her arms covered in fresh bruises. Mason wheezed with each breath, no inhaler in sight. Lily looked up from her homework, her hands wrapped in dirty bandages. Jake? Emma whispered. I pulled out my phone and started taking pictures. The bruises, the bandages, Mason's labored breathing. Are you here to help us? Lily asked. I'm trying. Grandpa says you abandoned us for drugs. That's not true. He made Emma drink the cleaning water yesterday. Mason's voice was barely audible. When she said she was hungry, I photographed everything, the bucket of cleaning supplies in their room, the pesticide containers stacked by their window, the padlock on the outside of their door. Boy! Grandfather's voice boomed from downstairs. Get down here. I squeezed Emma's hand. I'm getting you out. Back at dinner, Grandfather was scrolling through his phone. You know what I love about this farm? It teaches life lessons, like taxes. The government owes farmers like us. That's why I claim those deductions. $15,000 a year for labor that builds character, not paychecks. That's smart, I forced myself to say. Smart? He laughed. It's survival. These kids work. I save on taxes. They learn values. Everyone wins. Speaking of learning values, Grandmother stood up. Let me show you what Emma did today. She led me outside to the barn. There, in the corner, was a trail camera I hadn't noticed before, pointed directly at the pond. "We installed this last week," she said, "to catch whoever's been stealing our chemicals." My blood went cold. Funny thing is, we caught something else entirely. She pulled out her phone and showed me the screen. It was video from that morning. Me, sneaking onto the property at dawn, pouring something into the pond, except I hadn't been here this morning. "This is fake," I said. "Is it?" Grandmother smiled. "Because we have 3 witnesses who saw you here. The camera doesn't lie, Jake." I looked closer. It was definitely someone my height and build, wearing clothes identical to mine, but the face was always turned away or obscured. "You poisoned your own pond and blamed us," Grandfather said from behind me. "Just to get attention, just to get that trust fund. That's not me in the video. Prove it." His smile was ice cold. "Because tomorrow morning, we're taking this to the police. Unless you publicly admit you lied about everything." I left immediately, my hands shaking as I drove away. But I had what I needed. Grandmother's confession about poisoning the pond, Grandfather's admission of tax fraud, photos of my cousin's abuse, and something else. As I'd left the barn, I'd spotted another camera hidden in the rafters. One they didn't know I'd seen, one that had been there for years. Mrs. Henderson's husband had installed it, the retired FBI agent who'd been secretly documenting everything. The next morning, I drove to the Department of Labor office with my evidence binder, ready to file a formal complaint. The clerk barely looked at the documents. "Agricultural family exemptions apply here. Children working on family farms aren't covered by labor laws. They tried to kill me with pesticides. That's a criminal matter, not labor. Try the police." I'd already tried the police. Sheriff Coleman was Grandfather's hunting buddy. They'd gone deer hunting together for 20 years. He'd laughed when I showed him the medical records. "Harold Morrison is the most upstanding man in this county. Stop wasting my time." Child Protective Services was next. The caseworker, Mrs. Davies, at least pretended to listen. "Your cousins are being poisoned." I showed her the photos. "Look at Emma's bruises. Mason can't breathe. Lily's missing school." Grandparents have the right to discipline their grandchildren. Farm work builds character. This isn't discipline. It's torture. She closed my file. "Unless there's immediate danger of death, we can't intervene in family farming operations." "I almost died 3 weeks ago." "You're 19, not our jurisdiction." Marcus Williams had warned me this would happen. "Rural counties protect their own," he'd said. "You need federal involvement." The IRS finally returned my call after 2 weeks. "Tax fraud investigation? We'll add it to the queue. Current processing time is 18 to 24 months. My cousins don't have 2 years. Not our department's concern. OSHA was worse. Family farms are exempt unless you can prove imminent danger to non-family employees. What about imminent danger to family? Not our jurisdiction without a current employee complaint. I tried the county courthouse. Judge Brennan's secretary recognized my name immediately. Judge Brennan doesn't see walk-ins, especially not from the Morrison family situation. What Morrison family situation? Your grandparents already briefed him. He's aware of your mental health issues. They'd gotten there first. Every door I tried, they'd already poisoned against me. The state representative's office was my last hope. I waited 3 hours to see an aide who looked younger than me. "Family farms are the backbone of Pennsylvania," he said, reading from a prepared statement. "Representative Johnson won't interfere in private family matters. This is child abuse. This is tradition. These farming families built our state. They're stealing federal subsidies." That made him pause. He actually looked up from his paper. "Federal subsidies?" I showed him the tax documents. $15,000 per year in agricultural deductions. Federal organic certification obtained through fraud. USDA subsidies claimed for crops that didn't exist. "This is federal fraud," I said, "crossing state lines. Wire fraud. Tax evasion. That's FBI territory." He photocopied everything. "I'll forward this to the federal prosecutor's office. Don't expect miracles. The Morrisons donate heavily to political campaigns." "Which campaigns?" "All of them." I left feeling defeated. 7 agencies, 7 rejections. The system wasn't broken. It was designed this way, to protect people like my grandparents. That night, Diego called. "I heard you're hitting walls everywhere. They own this county. Not the federal government. You know your grandfather's ships produce across state lines? So? Interstate commerce. If he's committing fraud that crosses state boundaries, that's federal jurisdiction. No local judge can protect him from that." Marcus Williams confirmed it the next day. "Federal agricultural subsidy fraud is serious. The USDA has its own investigative unit. They don't care about local politics." He helped me file the federal complaint, attached every piece of evidence, the tax documents, the poisoning admission, the child labor documentation. "This could take months," Marcus warned. "Federal wheels turn slow." "What about my cousins?" "Document everything. If Emma or Mason end up in the hospital, that's your trigger. Emergency removal protocols override everything else." 2 days later, I got a call from the USDA fraud hotline. They'd opened a case. Preliminary investigation would begin within 30 days. 30 days. Emma could be dead in 30 days. But it was something. The first crack in grandfather's armor. That night, Mom finally called. "Jake, what have you done?" "Federal investigators? Your grandfather is furious." "Good. He says if you don't drop this, he'll make sure your cousins never leave that farm." "He said that? On the phone? Just now?" "Yes. Why?" I looked at my phone. Still recording. Pennsylvania might be two-party consent, but Mom had just given me evidence of blackmail and threat of child endangerment. Thanks, Mom. That's exactly what I needed. The system had failed me at every local level, but Grandfather had made one mistake. He'd stolen federal money, and the federal government doesn't care if you're a pillar of the community. They just care if you owe them money. 2 days after the federal government acknowledged my complaint, everything started unraveling. Grandmother called me at 6 in the morning. We found your little camera by the pond. Did you really think we wouldn't notice? My stomach dropped. The trail camera I'd hidden to catch Grandfather dumping chemicals. I don't know what you're talking about. Your friend Mrs. Henderson already admitted it was hers. Said you asked her to install it. We're pressing charges for trespassing and surveillance. That wasn't true. Mrs. Henderson's husband had installed his own cameras years ago, but now they knew I was watching. That afternoon, Marcus called from the legal aid office. Jake, don't come here anymore. There's a private investigator taking photos of everyone who enters. What? Your grandfather hired him. He's been here 3 days. Got pictures of you meeting with me. Your grandparents are building a case that you're conspiring against them. I looked out my apartment window. A blue sedan sat across the street. The same one I'd noticed yesterday. My phone buzzed with a text from Uncle Ted. Cease and desist letter attached. Stop all contact with the family and retract your federal complaint or face lawsuit for defamation, theft, and harassment. The letter was from Brennan and Associates, the best law firm in the county. Grandfather had spent serious money on this. Mom called an hour later, sobbing. Jake, please stop. They've frozen my access to the family accounts. Your father can't get contracts anymore. Nobody in town will work with us. Mom, they're torturing children. They'll destroy us. All of us. Your grandfather told me if you don't drop this, your cousins will never leave that farm. He'll homeschool them. Nobody will ever see them again. Did he say that exactly? Yes, why does that matter? Jake, he means it. He has legal guardianship. He can do whatever he wants. That's kidnapping, Mom. Threatening to hold children hostage. It's not kidnapping if they're his legal wards. I hung up and immediately called Marcus. Can we use that threat? Not without proof. Your word against his. That night, I came home to my apartment door standing open. Everything was destroyed. My mattress slashed, my laptop missing. The physical journals I'd retrieved from the farm were gone. But they didn't know about the cloud backup, or the external drive hidden in my car, or the copies I'd sent to Mrs. Henderson's husband. The police took 2 hours to arrive. Officer Brennan, the judge's nephew. Probably drug addicts, he said without investigating. This neighborhood has problems. Nothing else was taken, just evidence against my grandparents. What evidence? I don't see any evidence. He smiled. Maybe you imagined it. Like you imagined that poisoning. After he left, I found a note under my pillow. Stop now, or next time it won't be your apartment. My phone rang at midnight. Unknown number. Mr. Morrison? This is Diane Walsh from the Psychiatric Evaluation Unit at Jefferson Hospital. We received a court order for your involuntary assessment. What court order? Your grandmother filed it. She says you're having paranoid delusions about your family. The judge signed it this afternoon. Which judge? Judge Brennan. Of course, grandfather's friend. You need to report for evaluation within 72 hours, or we'll send police to collect you. I hung up and called Marcus immediately. They can't do that without cause, he said. They have a judge in their pocket. Then you need a better lawyer. Fast. Mrs. Henderson called an hour later. Jake, my husband found something. Remember those cameras in the barn? He's been recording for 5 years. He has video of your grandfather beating you with a horsewhip when you were 14. That's not enough. They'll say it was discipline. Jake, there's more. 3 weeks ago, he recorded your grandmother on the phone with Judge Brennan. She offered him $50,000 to sign any paperwork she needed against you. That's bribery. That's a federal crime, and we have it on video. I sat in my destroyed apartment, surrounded by the wreckage of my life, and smiled for the first time in weeks. They'd just made their biggest mistake. The investigator found something else, Mrs. Henderson continued. Your grandmother has been in contact with a judge about having you involuntarily committed for psychological evaluation. I'm placing you under psychiatric hold for your own safety and the safety of others. Judge Brennan signed the order without looking at me. My grandparents stood behind him in his chambers, grandmother dabbing her eyes with a tissue. This is based on lies, I said. Your erratic behavior suggests otherwise. Breaking into your grandparents' home, stealing property, making wild accusations, clear signs of paranoid delusion. The bailiff cuffed me right there in the courthouse. My boss from my internship was in the hallway when they dragged me out. His face went white. Jake? What's happening? Call Marcus Williams at Legal Aid, I managed before they shoved me into the transport van. The psychiatric facility smelled like bleach and despair. They took my phone, my wallet, my shoelaces. The intake nurse barely looked at me. Involuntary hold for psychiatric evaluation. 72 hours minimum. I'm not mentally ill. That's what the evaluation will determine. Dr. Patel, the psychiatrist, saw me after 8 hours in a holding room. She actually listened. Your grandparents claim you've been using drugs and having paranoid delusions about them trying to kill you. I stayed calm. Explained the pesticide poisoning, the medical records, the federal investigation. Can you verify this? Call Dr. Chen at Jefferson Hospital. She treated me. 4 hours later, Dr. Patel returned. Dr. Chen confirms everything. Your lung damage is consistent with organophosphate exposure, not drug use. So I can leave? Not until the 72 hours are up. Judge's orders. 3 days. 3 days while my cousins were trapped on that farm. When they finally released me, my life was in ruins. My internship supervisor met me at the facility exit. I'm sorry, Jake. Corporate heard about the psychiatric hold. They terminated your internship based on false accusations. Doesn't matter. The liability is too high. My academic advisor called next. The dean wants to meet about your fitness to continue studies. A psychiatric hold is serious. It was fraudulent. Prove it. Meanwhile, Marcus had been investigating what happened while I was locked up. The news was worse than I imagined. Your grandparents filed for emergency custody of your cousins. Your Aunt Sarah tried to fight it, but your grandparents showed the judge your psychiatric hold as evidence the whole family has mental health issues. That makes no sense. It does when the judge is already bought. The custody order was immediate. Emma, Mason, and Lily were removed from their parents' homes and placed with my grandparents. Full guardianship. The parents signed consent? I couldn't believe it. They were told it was temporary, for the children's stability during the family crisis. Your mom and aunts were promised it would only last until things calmed down. They'll never give them back. Not voluntarily. I drove to my parents' house. Mom wouldn't open the door. You did this, she said through the window. You pushed them too far and now those babies are trapped there. They were already trapped there. At least we could visit before. Now Harold won't let anyone on the property. Says we're all mentally unstable influences. Dad finally spoke up from behind her. Your grandfather controls everyone's inheritance, the business contracts, the church connections. If we fight him, we lose everything. You already lost everything. You lost your children. We can get them back when this blows over. Mom, there is no blowing over. He's going to kill them. Stop being dramatic. I held up my medical records. He almost killed me. Emma's 8 years old. Her organs can't handle the same poison levels. Then stop fighting him. Apologize. Make peace. He's holding children hostage. He's their legal guardian now. There's nothing we can do. I left their house knowing I was truly alone. My cousins were locked on that farm. My family had chosen money over their lives. The legal system had failed at every level. But there was one call I hadn't made yet. Mrs. Henderson's husband had given me a number, a federal prosecutor who specialized in corruption cases. Judge Brennan took a bribe? The prosecutor asked. $50,000 to sign whatever my grandmother wanted. It's on video. Send me everything. If this is real, it's not just your grandparents going down. It's the entire corrupt system protecting them. The federal prosecutor said she'd look into the bribery video, but that could take weeks, maybe months. I didn't have weeks. I didn't even have days. My lungs were failing. Each breath felt like drowning in slow motion. Without the respiratory medications, the pesticide damage was getting worse. The prescription cost $400 without insurance. I had $37 in my bank account. The pharmacy tech looked at me with pity. There's a patient assistance program. Takes 6 to 8 weeks to process. I don't have 8 weeks. I'm sorry. I slept in my Honda that night. The apartment manager had changed the locks after I missed rent. All my belongings were in a dumpster somewhere, everything except my phone and the external drive with the evidence. My chest rattled with each breath. The car windows fogged up from my wheezing. I parked behind a 24-hour Walmart where security wouldn't bother me. At 3 a.m, I woke up choking. My oxygen levels were dropping. I needed help, but the emergency room would mean another $20,000 in debt. I was already looking at $50,000 from the last 2 visits. My phone lit up with an email from the college. Due to excessive absences and failure to respond to academic warnings, you are hereby placed on academic suspension. 4 years of straight A's, gone. Then another email, this one from financial aid. Your suspension triggers immediate repayment of federal loans. First payment of $876 due in 30 days. I laughed. It came out as a wet cough that left blood on my hand. My phone buzzed. A text from my friend Ryan. Hey man, heard about everything. My parents say I can't talk to you anymore. Sorry. Then another from Jessica. Jake, I want to help, but my dad says you're dangerous. Please don't contact me. One by one, everyone I knew was cutting me off. Grandfather's reach extended everywhere. I sat in that cold car, struggling to breathe, completely alone, and thought about dying. Not actively planning it, just thinking how much easier it would be, for everyone. My cousins would still be trapped, but at least grandfather couldn't use me as an excuse anymore. Mom and dad could reconcile with him, get their inheritance, move on. Maybe everyone would be better off. My phone buzzed again, a text from Lily. Grandpa says you abandoned us. He says you chose drugs over family. Emma won't stop crying. She thinks you hate us now. I stared at those words until they blurred. Emma thought I hated her. 8 years old and she thought I'd abandoned her. I tried to text back, but my hands were shaking too badly. From cold or lack of oxygen, I couldn't tell anymore. I drove to the library when it opened at 8, needed somewhere warm, somewhere with Wi-Fi to apply for emergency assistance. The librarian recognized me from before all this started. Jake, are you okay? I'm fine. I wasn't fine. I made it 3 steps into the computer lab before my legs gave out. The floor came up fast. I heard someone screaming, then nothing. I woke up back in Jefferson Hospital. Dr. Chen was standing over me, looking grim. Your lung function is at 60%. The damage is accelerating without proper treatment. I can't afford treatment. You can't afford not to have it. You're dying, Jake. How much? With the ICU stay, medications, respiratory therapy, $50,000 minimum. I laughed again. More blood came up. There has to be another option, I said. There is. Stop fighting your grandparents. They called. They'll pay for everything if you drop the federal complaint. They called you? Your grandmother. She seemed very concerned. said this was all a misunderstanding. She poisoned me. She said you poisoned yourself for attention. Even here in the hospital where they'd seen the evidence, grandmother's story was taking root. Dr. Chen leaned closer. Jake, I believe you. But belief doesn't pay for treatment. You need help, and they're offering it. At what cost? Your life is the cost if you don't take it. I thought about Emma crying, Mason wheezing, Lily wrapped in dirty bandages. I can't stop. If I stop, they'll kill my cousins. If you die, who saves them then? She left me alone with that question. 60% lung function. 50,000 in debt, about to become 100,000. No home, no job, no friends, no family support. The machine monitoring my oxygen beeped. 58%. My lungs were failing in real time. Maybe I couldn't save anyone. Maybe I was just another casualty of the Morrison family farm. I stared at the ceiling tiles, counting them like I used to count hay bales on the farm. 1, 2, 3, 4, each breath shorter than the last. Emma was counting on me. Mason needed his inhaler. Lily was missing school, but I was dying in a hospital bed with no way to pay for the treatment that would keep me alive. Grandfather had won. He'd destroyed me without lifting a finger. The system he'd spent 40 years building had done all the work for him. My phone sat silent on the bedside table. No calls, no texts. No one left who cared if I lived or died, except 3 kids on a farm who thought I'd abandoned them. I closed my eyes and tried to picture Emma's face without the tears. I couldn't remember the last time I'd seen her smile. Maybe I never would again. I'd been staring at the same ceiling tile for 3 hours when a nurse I didn't recognize walked in. She checked my chart, then looked at me, really looked at me. You're Jake Morrison, the one fighting Harold and Martha Morrison. I tensed, another person they'd gotten to. My daughter's been following your case, she said quietly. Rebecca, she's a journalism student at Penn State. I don't understand. Sandra pulled up a chair. Rebecca's been investigating agricultural abuse for 6 months. She's interviewed 3 other families with stories like yours. Other families? The Millers from 2 counties over. Their son lost a kidney from pesticide exposure. The Johnsons, their daughter has permanent nerve damage. The Washingtons, their twin boys both have respiratory failure. My chest tightened. Not from the lung damage, from rage. All from family farms? All from family farms claiming religious exemptions and agricultural subsidies. Sandra looked toward the door, then back at me. Rebecca wants to meet you, tonight. I can't even walk to the bathroom without oxygen. She'll come here. After visiting hours. At midnight, a young woman slipped into my room. Rebecca looked like every exhausted grad student I'd ever known. Coffee-stained sweatshirt, laptop bag, determined eyes. I've been tracking your grandparents for 4 months, she said without preamble. Before you even got poisoned. Why? They're not just abusing family. They're part of a network. 14 farms across Pennsylvania, all claiming religious exemptions, all taking federal subsidies, all with mysteriously injured grandchildren. She pulled out her laptop and showed me spreadsheets, names, dates, hospital records she'd obtained through FOIA requests. But here's what changes everything. She opened an audio file. Diego Ramirez, your grandfather's former farmhand. He called me yesterday. Diego's voice filled the room. I recorded Harold Morrison on July 15th. He didn't know I had my phone recording. Then my grandfather's voice, clear as day. Boy needed to learn. Little pesticide in the pond never killed anyone, just makes them sick enough to remember who's in charge. That's admission of attempted murder, Rebecca said. Pennsylvania's 2-party consent state. Diego recorded it in Ohio when your grandfather visited a supplier. 1-party consent state, completely legal. My hands started shaking. Will he testify? He's scared. But there's more. Rebecca pulled up another file. Mrs. Henderson's husband isn't just retired FBI, he's been building a RICO case. RICO. Racketeering. Your grandparents and their network have been defrauding the federal government for 20 years. We're talking millions in false agricultural subsidies. The door opened. I expected security. Instead, a woman in a rumpled suit walked in carrying a briefcase. Anna Martinez, she said. Free legal clinic. I don't usually make hospital visits, but your case isn't usual. I can't pay anything. That's what pro bono means. She sat down and pulled out documents. I've been reviewing your evidence. You have a strong case, but not in state court. Then where? Federal. Your grandparents take federal subsidies. That means federal jurisdiction. No local judges, no local prosecutors, no good old boys network. But that could take years. Not if we file an emergency injunction for your cousins. Federal judges don't care about your grandfather's church connections. Rebecca leaned forward. My article publishes in 3 days. Front page of the Patriot News. Then it goes national through our wire service. They'll sue you, I warned. Let them. Truth is an absolute defense. She pulled up photos on her laptop. Mrs. Henderson gave me these. 5 years of documentation. The photos were devastating. Me at 11, ribs showing through malnutrition. 12, with infected wounds. 14, the day after the horsewhipping. But this is the one that will end them. She clicked to a video file. It was from Mrs. Henderson's husband's hidden camera. My grandmother talking to Judge Brennan. The audio was perfect. 50,000 if you sign whatever paperwork I need against my grandson. Another 50 when he's committed. Judge Brennan's response, make it 75 each and you have a deal. That's federal bribery, Anna said. Conspiracy, wire fraud. Both looking at 10 years minimum. For the first time in weeks I could breathe without it hurting. Not my lungs, my hope. What do you need from me? Everything, Rebecca said. Every document, every recording, every photo. And survive, Anna added. We need you alive to testify. Sandra checked my monitors. His oxygen is up to 62%. First improvement in days. Maybe it was psychological. Maybe it was knowing I wasn't alone anymore, but for the first time since that pond, I believed my cousins might actually survive this. When do we start? I asked. Anna smiled. We already have. The day after Anna filed our federal complaint, everything started happening at once. The IRS called first. Mr. Morrison? We've completed our audit of Harold Morrison's agricultural tax returns. We found $47,000 in fraudulent deductions over 15 years. What happens now? Criminal referral to the Department of Justice. Tax fraud over 10,000 triggers mandatory prosecution. 2 hours later, the USDA investigator called. Your grandfather claimed organic certification while using banned organophosphates. That's federal fraud. We're pulling all his subsidies back to 2010. How much? $130,000. Due immediately, or we seize the farm. Marcus texted me that afternoon. Pennsylvania State Police just took over from local PD. FBI made the referral. They don't care about your grandfather's connections. Rebecca's article had gone viral. 17 complaints flooded child welfare in 3 days. 3 other families came forward with identical stories. The Washingtons, the Kleins, the Richardsons, all grandchildren, all farm labor, all injured. Mrs. Henderson had sent an anonymous package to the church board. Photos, videos, the recording of grandmother bribing Judge Brennan. Pastor Coleman called an emergency meeting, but none of that mattered compared to what happened at midnight. My phone rang. Lily's number. Her voice was barely a whisper. Jake, Grandpa's making us sign papers. What papers? I don't know. Something about the trust funds. He says if we don't sign, we'll end up like you, sick and homeless. My chest tightened. Where's Emma? She won't eat. She's so scared she just sits in the corner shaking. Mason can't breathe right. Grandpa took his inhaler again. Lily, listen carefully. Tomorrow morning, you need to. The line went dead. The call came at 7 the next morning from Jefferson Hospital's pediatric ward. Is this Jake Morrison? Your cousin Emma was just admitted. Severe organophosphate poisoning. I drove 90 miles an hour, my lungs screaming with every breath. No oxygen tank, no medication, just pure adrenaline keeping me conscious. The pediatric ICU was on the 3rd floor. I saw them before they saw me. Grandfather in his church clothes, grandmother with her fake tears, standing outside Emma's room like concerned guardians. I shoved past them and through the door. Emma looked so small in that bed, 8 years old, tubes everywhere, her little chest barely moving. The nurse looked up. Family only. I'm her cousin. He's not allowed here, grandmother said from the doorway. We have a restraining order. I turned on her. What did you do to her? She's just being dramatic, like you always were. The monitor started beeping, Emma's oxygen dropping. The nurse pushed between us. Everyone out. Now. But Emma's eyes opened. Found mine. Her lips moved. No sound came out, but I could read them. Help me. The nurse leaned down. Sweetheart, what happened? Emma's voice came out as a whisper we could all hear. Grandpa made me clean the pesticide tanks. When I said the smell made me sick, he made me drink the cleaning water. The room went silent, except for the machines. The nurse straightened up slowly, looked at my grandparents, then hit the red button on the wall. Security to pediatric ICU. And someone call CPS, now. Grandfather stepped toward Emma's bed. She's confused. The poisoning is affecting her mind. I lost it, shoved him hard enough that he stumbled back into the wall. Don't you fucking touch her! Security arrived in seconds. 2 guards. They grabbed my arms. He assaulted me, Grandfather said immediately. I want him arrested. But the nurse wasn't done. Emma, sweetie, can you tell me exactly what happened? Emma's voice was stronger now. Maybe because I was there. Maybe because she knew she was finally safe. Grandpa said I was lazy. Like Jake, he made me put my hands in the pesticide tank. Then he held my head under the cleaning water, said if I didn't drink, he'd do it to Mason next. The security guards let go of my arms. The nurse picked up the phone. I need CPS emergency response, pediatric ICU, mandatory reporter protocol. Yes, immediately. Grandmother started her fake collapse. My heart. Harold, my heart. Nobody moved to help her. The CPS worker arrived in 15 minutes. By then, Emma had told her story 3 times, each time with more details. The punishment journal grandmother kept, the locked bedroom door, the withheld food. We need to check on the other children immediately, the worker said. They're at the farm, I said. Mason and Lily, they're not safe. She made a call. I need emergency removal. Morrison Farm, 2 minors in immediate danger. Grandfather's face had gone from red to purple. You can't do this. I have legal guardianship. Not anymore, she said. As of right now, they're wards of the state. State police and CPS arrived at the farm within an hour of Emma's disclosure. I watched from my car at the road's edge. Couldn't get closer because of the restraining order, but I needed to see this. 6 police cars, 3 CPS vans. They weren't taking chances. The lead detective knocked. When no one answered, they used the warrant to break down the door. I could hear grandmother screaming from inside about her rights, about religious freedom, about government overreach. Then I saw them bring out Mason and Lily. Mason could barely walk. Lily had her arms wrapped around herself like she was trying to disappear. Both got into separate CPS vans. My phone rang. Detective Rivera from State Police. Mr. Morrison, we need you to identify some items we found. I have a restraining order. It's suspended for this investigation. Can you come to the barn? The barn looked exactly the same, smelled the same, pesticides and hay and 15 years of my blood and sweat. Is this the punishment journal? Rivera held up a leather-bound book. I opened it. Grandmother's perfect handwriting. Every infraction, every beating, every withheld meal, dating back 20 years. July 3, 2009. Jake refused to clean chicken coop. No dinner. August 15, 2011. Jake cried during pesticide application. Locked in grain silo for attitude adjustment. May 6, 2023. Emma complained about hunger. Made to drink cleaning solution. Each entry matched my journals, matched the medical records. She documented her own crimes. We also found this. Rivera showed me a box of documents. Social security cards for all 4 grandchildren. Bank accounts opened in our names. Credit cards. Loans. They stole your identities? I looked closer. $47,000 in credit card debt under my social security number. Loans totaling $90,000 under Mason's name. He was 11 years old. And this. She led me to the children's bedroom, pesticide containers stacked against the wall where they slept. The window painted shut. A bucket in the corner that smelled like urine. No bathroom access at night, I said. Rivera took photos of everything. We found Mason's inhaler hidden in your grandmother's dresser. Says she took it as punishment for wheezing too loud. Where's Lily's diary? Here. She handed it to me with gloves. I couldn't read it all. Couldn't get past the entry about grandfather's hired hand, Carlos. What he tried to do to her in the barn. How grandfather said she was lying. How grandmother said she was asking for it by wearing shorts in summer. She's 14, I said. We're tracking down Carlos now. Outside, they were loading evidence boxes into vans, computers, file cabinets, the punishment journal, 20 years of meticulous documentation of child torture. A news van pulled up, then another. Rebecca had timed her second article perfectly. Pennsylvania farm hides decades of child slavery. Grandparents arrested in systematic abuse case. Federal investigation expands to 14 farms. My phone wouldn't stop ringing. Reporters, lawyers, other families with similar stories. But I only cared about one call. Aunt Sarah. Jake, they're placing the kids in emergency foster care. CPS says family can't take them until the investigation is complete. What? Why? They say the whole family knew and did nothing. We're all under investigation. Mason with his damaged lungs in a stranger's house. Lily with her trauma. Emma, still in the ICU, waking up to people she didn't know. That's not right. The hearing is tomorrow. Emergency custody. Judge Williams from Philadelphia. They brought in someone with no local connections. I was walking back to my car when Detective Rivera stopped me. One more thing. Your grandmother's desk had this. She showed me a printed email to Judge Brennan, dated yesterday. If my grandson doesn't back down, I'll release the photos of you and that underage girl from the church youth group. Blackmail on top of bribery. Grandmother had been playing every angle. Mr. Morrison, Rivera said, I need to warn you. They arrested you for assault at the hospital. You'll need to turn yourself in for processing. But Emma, the prosecutor already said they'll release you on your own recognizance. It's just paperwork, but you need a lawyer. Anna Martinez was already at the station when I arrived. Don't say anything, she said. Assault charges will be dropped once the full story comes out. The booking took 3 hours, fingerprints, photos, the whole humiliation. But when I walked out, Rebecca was there with her photographer. The world needs to see what they did to you, she said. All of you. I stood there in my hospital band, my arrest paperwork, my oxygen tank I'd finally gotten from the pharmacy, and I let them document it all. Because tomorrow, at that custody hearing, everything would finally come into the light. The custody hearing was scheduled for 9 in the morning, but by 8:30, the federal machinery had already started moving. Federal prosecutor Sarah Chen called me at 7. The Morrison case is now under federal jurisdiction. Tax fraud, subsidy fraud, wire fraud, conspiracy, and bribery of a state official. What does that mean? Your grandparents are looking at 20 to 30 years, each. I couldn't speak. 20 years. They were 70. That was a life sentence. The USDA investigator called next. We're seizing the farm. All subsidies from 2005 forward were obtained through fraud. They owe the federal government $347,000. The farm's only worth $400,000. Then they'll have $43,000 left after we're done. The IRS had already placed liens. No property sales, no asset transfers. Everything frozen. At 8:45, my phone rang. Pastor Coleman. Jake, I need to talk to you about your grandparents. Why would I talk to you? Because the state licensing board is investigating me for failure to report child abuse. 17 instances over 20 years. I could lose everything. Good. I have information about the other families, the network your grandparents were part of. I hung up. Let him burn with the rest of them. The courthouse was packed, not just with family, but with reporters. 7 other families had joined what was becoming a class action. The Millers, the Washingtons, the Johnsons, the Kleins, the Richardsons, the Parkers, the Nguyen's. All with grandchildren damaged by family farms. All with the same story. Religious exemptions, agricultural subsidies, systematic abuse hidden behind tradition. Judge Williams from Philadelphia had been brought in specifically because she had no connections to rural Pennsylvania. She was black, urban, and had a reputation for not tolerating bullshit. I've reviewed the evidence, she said without preamble. I've seen the punishment journal, the medical records, the identity theft documents, the video evidence of bribery. My grandparents sat at the defendant's table. For the first time, they looked small, old, defeated. I've also received notice that Judge Brennan has been arrested on federal corruption charges. Gasps from the gallery. Brennan had been untouchable for 20 years. Furthermore, the Pennsylvania legislature has announced emergency hearings on agricultural exemptions to child labor laws. Representative Johnson's aide was in the back, taking notes. The same one who told me family farms were Pennsylvania's backbone. This case has exposed systematic exploitation spanning decades, Judge Williams continued. What I've seen here isn't traditional farming. It's modern slavery hidden behind religious freedom and rural tradition. CNN was running a banner at the bottom of their screen. Modern slavery on family farms, Pennsylvania scandal expands. The New York Times had sent their lead investigative reporter. The Washington Post was running a series. Rebecca's work had triggered a national reckoning. Sheriff Coleman has been suspended pending investigation, Judge Williams added. 14 other families have come forward with similar allegations. My phone buzzed. A text from Diego. Testifying tomorrow. Recorded everything. Your grandfather bragged about breaking children like horses. It's all admissible. Mrs. Henderson's husband had submitted 5 years of surveillance footage. The FBI was treating it as organized crime. RICO charges were being prepared. The scope of this conspiracy is still being uncovered, Judge Williams said. But one thing is clear. The systematic torture of children under the guise of agricultural tradition ends today. Ana Martinez squeezed my hand. We'd done it. We'd broken through every level of protection they'd built. As for the immediate matter of custody, Judge Williams looked directly at my grandparents. Harold and Martha Morrison, you are hereby stripped of all custodial rights. Permanently. Grandmother started her fake crying. Nobody cared. Furthermore, given evidence of identity theft, you're prohibited from any contact with any minor children, supervised or otherwise. Grandfather stood up. This is religious persecution. We're good Christian people being destroyed by lies. Sit down, Mr. Morrison. You'll have your chance to make that argument at your federal trial. If you're not in prison for bribery, tax fraud, subsidy fraud, conspiracy, and 18 counts of child endangerment. The entire system that had protected them for decades had flipped. Federal prosecutors didn't care about their church connections. Federal judges didn't care about their community standing. The IRS didn't care about their sob stories. They cared about the money, and the crimes, and the paper trail my grandmother had so carefully documented in her punishment journal. Judge Williams' ruling changed everything, but nothing felt real yet. Aunt Sarah's house became our temporary shelter. 4 damaged kids trying to remember how to exist outside a farm. Emma couldn't keep food down. Her stomach had shrunk from months of starvation. Mason wheezed through every breath. His inhaler finally returned, but his lungs permanently scarred. Lily hadn't spoken since they removed her from the farm. I sat with them in Sarah's living room, all of us receiving IV fluids from the visiting nurse. 4 kids hooked to medical equipment like a pediatric ward. Jake? Emma's voice was tiny. Are we safe now? Yes. Forever? I couldn't answer that. Not with what I knew was coming. The prosecutor called that afternoon. Anna put it on speaker. Your grandparents' lawyer reached out. They're offering a plea deal. My chest tightened. What kind of deal? They'll plead guilty to tax fraud, $15,000 in restitution, 2 years probation. That's it? What about the poisoning, the identity theft, the abuse? They want assault and endangerment charges dropped. If you refuse, this goes to trial. Anna muted the phone. Jake, if this goes to trial, your cousins have to testify. I looked at Emma, 8 years old, hooked to a feeding tube. Mason, 11, on breathing treatments every 4 hours. Lily, 14, who still woke up screaming about Carlos. They'd have to describe everything, in court, with grandfather watching? Every detail. Defense lawyers would cross-examine them, try to make them look like liars. The prosecutor continued. Your grandparents are 70. Even with just tax fraud, they'll likely die before completing probation. The farm's been seized. They're bankrupt. But no prison time. No prison time. I thought about Emma drinking cleaning water, Mason's hidden inhaler, Lily's diary, my own scarred lungs. What happens to Judge Brennan? Federal bribery charges. He's looking at 10 years minimum. Sheriff Coleman? Under investigation. Career over either way. Pastor Coleman? Lost his license. Church board removed him. Some justice. Not enough. Never enough. Mom arrived while I was still processing. She hadn't been to see us since the hospital. She stood in the doorway looking older than her 45 years. Jake. Mom. I failed you. The words came out broken. I chose their approval over your safety. I knew something was wrong every summer. The bruises, the weight loss, the fear in your eyes. Then why? Because I was scared of them too. They raised me the same way. I thought if I was good enough, grateful enough, they'd change. They never change. I know that now. She pulled out an envelope. I went to their farm yesterday, found this in grandmother's desk. Photos, dozens of them. Me at every age, documenting injuries, but not for concern. Each photo had notes on the back in grandmother's handwriting. July 2009, Jake refuses to work. Correction applied. August 2011, chemical burn teaches respect for equipment. July 2013, heat exhaustion builds character. She'd been building a defense for 20 years, documenting her abuse as discipline. There's more, Mom said. Uncle Ted knew. Aunt Janet knew. Everyone knew. We all just let it happen. To protect your inheritance. To protect ourselves. We were all abused too. Different times, different methods, same system. The extended family was fracturing. Uncle Ted was suspended from work. Aunt Janet was in therapy, finally processing her own childhood. Some cousins supported us. Others called us traitors. The Morrison family empire, built on 4 generations of abuse, was finally crumbling. Anna's phone rang again. The prosecutor. I need an answer. Accept the plea or go to trial. Your cousins testifying or your grandparents walking free with probation. I looked at Emma, finally eating small amounts. Mason, breathing without panic. Lily, starting to make eye contact again. They'd been through enough. 24 hours, I said. Give me 24 hours. The prosecutor sighed. 24 hours. Then they withdraw the offer and we go to war. I rejected the plea deal at 7 that morning and walked into federal court at 9, knowing my cousins would have to testify. The courtroom was packed, media in the back rows, 7 other families in the middle, my family scattered throughout, divided by loyalty and money. My grandparents sat at the defendant's table looking like sweet elderly victims. Grandmother had even brought her oxygen tank for sympathy, though she didn't need it. Your Honor, the federal prosecutor began, the defendant systematically tortured 4 grandchildren over 15 years while defrauding the federal government of $347,000. Objection, their lawyer said. Torture is inflammatory. Judge Williams looked at him. I've read the punishment journal. I've seen the medical records. Torture is accurate. Overruled. I was called first. I brought my childhood journals to the stand. July 3, 2009, I read to the packed courtroom. Worked from 6 in the morning until 8 at night. No lunch. Grandma said I was getting fat anyway. Grandmother started her fake crying. I kept reading. August 15, 2011. Grandpa made me spray tomatoes without gloves. My hands are still burning. That's a lie. Grandfather stood up. The boy wrote those recently to frame us. The prosecutor introduced the forensic analysis. Ink dating. Paper aging. Confirmed authentic. Lily testified next. 14 years old, voice barely audible. He made Emma drink cleaning water when she complained about being hungry. Grandmother's tears got louder. Nobody looked at her. Mason wheezed through his entire testimony. The prosecutor had him show his chest x-rays to the court. Lungs scarred like a 60-year-old coal miner. How did this happen? The prosecutor asked. Grandpa made me clean pesticide tanks without a mask. Said masks were for weak city boys. Emma's foster mother read her statement since Emma was too young to testify. Grandpa held my head under the water. He said if I didn't drink, Mason would be next. That's when grandfather exploded. Those kids were spoiled, he shouted. Lazy, entitled. We made them strong. We taught them to work. This is what's wrong with America. Children don't respect their elders anymore. His lawyer tried to quiet him. He kept going. That farm built character. Those kids needed discipline. The Bible says, spare the rod, spoil the child. The Bible also says don't provoke your children to wrath, Judge Williams interrupted. But please continue explaining how poisoning children builds character. Grandmother stood up, clutching her chest. We loved them. We gave them everything. This is Satan's work. These children have been corrupted by liberal ideology. Mrs. Morrison, Judge Williams said, your own journal documents withholding food as punishment, making an 8-year-old drink pesticide, locking children in grain silos. They needed to learn consequences. Consequences for what? Being hungry? Being tired? Being children? The prosecutor played Diego's recording. Grandfather's voice filled the courtroom. Boy needed to learn. Little pesticide in the pond never killed anyone, just makes them sick enough to remember who's in charge. Then Mrs. Henderson's video, grandmother bribing Judge Brennan, $50,000 to sign whatever she needed. The defense had nothing, no witnesses, no character references. Pastor Coleman was under indictment. Sheriff Coleman was suspended. Judge Brennan was in federal custody. Their entire network of protection had collapsed. Your Honor, their lawyer made one last attempt. My clients are 70 years old. They're in poor health. Prison would be a death sentence. Your clients systematically tortured children for financial gain while hiding behind religion, Judge Williams replied. They stole identities, committed tax fraud, bribed officials, created what amounts to a child labor trafficking ring across 14 farms. She looked directly at my grandparents. You had 100 chances to stop. Every summer when these children arrived, every hospital visit, every scar, every tear, you chose to continue. Grandfather tried once more. We're good Christian people. This is religious persecution. No, Mr. Morrison. This is justice. Something your victims have waited 15 years to see. The jury deliberated for 2 hours. They came back with guilty verdicts on all charges. Tax fraud, subsidy fraud, wire fraud, conspiracy, bribery, 18 counts of child endangerment, 4 counts of attempted murder. My grandparents sat in stunned silence as the bailiffs brought out the handcuffs. The bailiffs cuffed my grandparents right there in the courtroom, but sentencing wouldn't come for another 3 weeks. When it did, the federal courthouse was even more packed. National media, documentary crews, families from 14 states who'd been following our case. Judge Williams didn't waste time with pleasantries. Harold and Martha Morrison, you've been found guilty on all counts. The federal sentencing guidelines suggest 5 to 8 years. Grandmother gasped. Grandfather's face went purple. However, Judge Williams continued, given your age and health considerations, I'm sentencing you to 18 months in federal minimum security prison, followed by 3 years supervised probation. Prison. Even minimum security, it was still prison. Additionally, you will pay $47,000 in medical restitution to your grandchildren, $23,000 in federal agricultural subsidy repayment. The IRS has placed liens totaling $300,000. Your farm will be seized to cover these debts. Your Honor, their lawyer pleaded. My clients are 70 years old. Prison will kill them. Your clients nearly killed 4 children. 18 months is a gift. The prosecution asked for 8 years. But their health. Federal medical care is excellent. They'll receive better treatment than their grandchildren did. Judge Williams looked directly at my grandparents. You will have zero contact with any minor children, including your grandchildren, for life. You will attend mandatory counseling. Any violation of probation means serving the full 20-year sentence. 20 years? Grandmother wailed. That's what you're avoiding with this plea. Be grateful. The trust fund was another story. $180,000 my grandparents had saved for my education. Except when the forensic accountants finished, only $90,000 remained. Where's the rest? I asked Anna. Legal fees for their defense. Loans your grandmother took against it. She had power of attorney until you turned 25. So they stole that too. But you get what's left immediately. No more waiting. $90,000. Enough to cover my medical bills and maybe restart college. Not enough to undo 15 years of damage. The church's response was swift and silent. No public announcement, no admission of failure, just a quiet notice that Harold and Martha Morrison were no longer members of the Elder Board. Pastor Coleman's fate was more public. The state licensing board suspended him pending investigation. 17 confirmed cases of failure to report child abuse. The church board voted him out within a week. Criminal charges pending. Sheriff Coleman resigned before they could fire him. Lost his pension. Under federal investigation for conspiracy. Judge Brennan got 8 years federal time for bribery. No plea deal, no mercy. But there was one charge that didn't stick. Attempted murder. We can't prove intent to kill, the federal prosecutor explained. Your grandmother admitted to putting pesticide in the pond, but her lawyer argued it was meant to sicken, not kill. She tried to murder me. I believe you, but proving premeditation for murder is different from proving assault. So they got 18 months for nearly drowning me, for forcing Emma to drink cleaning water, for stealing Mason's inhaler, for 15 years of torture. The assault charges against me were dismissed with prejudice. The prosecutor called it justified defense of a minor in danger. You pushed an elderly man, Anna said, while he was actively harming your 8-year-old cousin. Any jury would acquit. Small victory. Grandfather still painted himself as the victim to anyone who'd listen. The farm sold at auction 2 months later, $400,000 for 40 acres. After the federal liens, the IRS penalties, and the USDA clawbacks, my grandparents would have nothing when they got out of prison. The Bureau of Prisons assigned them to separate facilities. Grandfather to Morgantown, grandmother to Alderson. 3 hours apart, no conjugal visits at their age. First time separated in 50 years, Mom told me. It's killing them more than the prison time. Good. Let them suffer the way we suffered, alone, afraid, powerless, but even facing federal prison, they refused to admit wrongdoing. We were building character, Grandfather told the pre-sentencing investigator. These children are weak because society coddles them. The investigator included that quote in the report. It's why they got 18 months instead of 12. They'd lost everything. The farm, the money, the respect, the power, their freedom. But we'd lost things that couldn't be replaced. Lung capacity, childhood, trust, years we'd never get back. 18 months in minimum security for 15 years of torture. The judge called it justice. It felt like another scar that would never fully heal. 18 months in minimum security wasn't enough, but at least they were gone. The family exploded the moment the marshals led them away. Uncle Ted cornered me outside the courthouse. You destroyed this family. 4 generations of success. Gone. You helped them commit fraud. I gave legal advice. That's my job. The Bar Association disagreed. 6 weeks later, Uncle Ted was disbarred for knowingly advising clients on tax fraud and identity theft. He'd known about the stolen social security numbers, the fraudulent loans in our names. He'd helped structure it to avoid detection. He left Pennsylvania the day he lost his license. Last I heard, he was selling insurance in Florida. Aunt Sarah stepped up for my cousins. She'd been the only one who stopped sending her kids to the farm. Now she fought for emergency guardianship of Emma, Mason, and Lily. I should have done this years ago, she told the family court judge. I knew something was wrong. I was a coward. The judge granted it. 3 damaged kids trying to learn what normal meant. The rest of the family picked sides. Aunt Janet stood with us. Uncle Mike called us traitors. Cousins I'd grown up with blocked me on social media. Others messaged support but only privately, afraid of taking sides publicly. You broke the family, one cousin texted. Was it worth it? I looked at Emma, finally gaining weight. Mason, breathing without panic. Lily, starting to speak again. Yes, it was worth it. Mom started therapy 3 days after the sentencing. Doctor mandated, twice a week. I enabled them, she told me after her 4th session. I delivered you to them every summer knowing something was wrong. Why? Because they did it to me too. Different methods, same system. I thought if I was good enough, grateful enough, they'd be better with you. They were worse. I know. I failed you. Our relationship would never be what it could have been. Too much damage, too many summers of deliberate blindness, but she was trying. That was something. I went back to Penn State part-time, 3 classes. All I could handle with the medical appointments, respiratory therapy every morning, psychiatrist every Tuesday, therapist every Thursday. The PTSD diagnosis came quick. Nobody was surprised. Hypervigilance, intrusive thoughts, dissociation, Dr. Martinez listed. Your textbook for complex trauma. She prescribed Lexapro for the anxiety, Prazosin for the nightmares, Ativan for the panic attacks that hit whenever I smelled pesticides. My engineering dreams had to adjust. 60% lung capacity meant no construction sites, no chemical plants, no field work where I might encounter agricultural chemicals. Occupational safety, my advisor suggested. Use what happened to you to protect others. It made sense. I knew what happened when safety protocols were ignored, when children were expendable, when profit mattered more than lives. The respiratory therapy was brutal. Every morning, 30 minutes of breathing exercises that felt like drowning in reverse. The therapist said my lungs might improve to 70% capacity, maybe, if I was lucky, if scar tissue didn't form. You're young, she said. That helps. Young. 20 years old with the lungs of a 60-year-old, needing an inhaler to climb stairs, unable to run, unable to swim, unable to do anything that required sustained oxygen. The psychiatrist adjusted my medications twice in the first month. The nightmares wouldn't stop. Every night, I was back in that pond, grandfather holding my head under, grandmother laughing, my cousin screaming for help I couldn't give. It's your brain trying to process the trauma, Dr. Martinez explained. It will get better. When? I don't know. Trauma doesn't follow timelines. Mom drove me to therapy when I was too exhausted to drive myself. She'd wait in the parking lot, reading books about enabling and family dysfunction. I'm reading about generational trauma, she told me one day. It goes back further than your grandparents. Their parents did it to them, and their parents before that. That doesn't excuse it. No. But it explains it. The cycle has to break somewhere. It broke with us. Emma, Mason, Lily, and me. The last generation to work that farm. The last children to be tortured for tradition. My cousins were in therapy too. Play therapy for Emma. Cognitive behavioral therapy for Mason. Trauma-focused therapy for Lily. 4 broken kids trying to piece together lives from fragments. But we were free. Finally, completely free. That had to count for something. 6 months after my grandparents went to federal prison, I could finally breathe without thinking about drowning. Not physically. My lungs were still fucked, 60% capacity on good days, but mentally, I wasn't drowning anymore. I worked part-time at the hospital as a patient advocate, 20 hours a week. All my damaged lungs could handle. Dr. Chen had recommended me after seeing how I navigated the system during my own case. You understand what patients need, she said, because you've been there. I helped families file complaints against negligent doctors, translated medical bullshit into plain English, made sure kids in the pediatric ward weren't being ignored when they said something hurt. The Pennsylvania legislature called me to testify about agricultural exemptions 3 times. The first time, I brought my oxygen tank for effect, wheezed through my entire testimony about nearly dying at 19. Family farms built this state, one representative argued. Family farms almost killed me, I wheezed back. And they're killing kids right now while you protect tradition over children. They passed Jake's Law 4 months later. No more exemptions for hazardous work. Kids could still help on family farms, but not with chemicals, not with dangerous equipment, not for 12-hour days. 17 other states started drafting similar bills. Rebecca and I founded a nonprofit, Survivors of Agricultural Labor Exploitation, SAIL. We had 40 members by month 3. Kids from across the country with similar stories. Chemical burns, crushed fingers, heat stroke. All from family farms hiding behind tradition. I met Sophia at our support group. She'd lost a kidney to pesticide exposure on her uncle's orchard. We understood each other's medical schedules. Our first date was comparing medication side effects over hospital cafeteria food. At least your grandparents went to prison, she said. 18 months isn't prison, it's a timeout. More than my uncle got. My cousins were healing, slowly, unevenly, but healing. Emma had gained 15 pounds. She stopped hoarding food under her bed, started talking again. Not much, but some. Her foster therapist said she'd probably never fully trust adults, but she was learning to function. Mason surprised everyone by joining middle school cross country. His lungs were as damaged as mine, but he refused to quit. Came in last every race. Didn't care. His inhaler became his trophy. I'm running because Grandpa said I never could, he told me. Lily got into Penn State with an essay about surviving family exploitation. She wanted to be a social worker, save kids like us. Her acceptance letter came the same day grandmother was denied early release for good behavior. We all still carried scars. Emma's arms from chemical burns, Mason's chest from respiratory damage, Lily's wrists from being tied up as punishment, my lungs that would never fully inflate again. But we were alive. Free. Together. My grandparents got out after 14 months. Early release for prison overcrowding. They moved into subsidized senior housing in Harrisburg, the kind they used to call welfare queens. Grandfather got a job at Walmart as a greeter. 71 years old, standing 8 hours a day for minimum wage. Grandmother's health was actually failing now. No faking. Diabetes from prison food, arthritis from prison beds. Real karma instead of manufactured sympathy. They sent letters to their old church friends claiming persecution. Said they were victims of cancel culture. Ungrateful grandchildren. Liberal agenda. Deep state conspiracy against Christian farmers. Nobody wrote back. The farm sold to an organic co-op that turned it into a healing center for agricultural abuse survivors. They invited me to the opening. I couldn't go, couldn't set foot on that land again, but knowing it was helping kids instead of hurting them felt like something. I stood at my support group meeting last week, 20 people in a church basement, all of us broken by family farms. I'm Jake. I'm 20 years old. My grandparents tried to kill me because I refused to be their slave. The words came easier now. Not easy, but easier. But I survived. My cousin survived. And today, that's enough. I held up my inhaler, blue plastic, my constant reminder. This tells me I'm still breathing. They didn't win. After the meeting, Sophia drove me home. We stopped at a farmer's market. I had a panic attack in the parking lot, the smell of pesticides from nearby fields. She held me until it passed. You're okay, she whispered. You're not there anymore. I wasn't there, but I'd never fully leave either. None of us would. 47,000 kids still work on American farms. A third will be seriously injured, but now they have laws named after me. Now they have our nonprofit. Now they have proof that speaking up might actually save them. My grandparents lost everything: their farm, their money, their reputation, their power, but we lost things that couldn't be returned: childhood, health, trust, time. Still, we survived. And today, that really was enough.